My husband was recently stopped by a police officer who said, "Congratulations, sir. You are the 1 millionth car to drive over this bridge. You win $10,000. What will you do with that money?" My husband gets very emotional and says, "First of all, I'll finally obtain my driver's license." I cut in and said, "Don't listen to him, officer. He's still drunk." My mother-in-law says from the back seat, "I knew we shouldn't have taken this stolen car." And my cousin in the trunk asks, "Hey, are we past the border now?" And that's when the fight started. Success at every age. At age 4, success is not peeing your pants. At age 12, success is having friends. At age 17, success is having a driver's license. At age 20, success is having sex. At age 35, success is having money. At age 50, success is having money. At age 65, success is having sex. At age 70, success is having a driver's license. At age 75, success is having friends. At age 80, success is not peeing your pants. A guy walks into a pub and sees a sign hanging over the bar which reads, "Cheese sandwich, $1.50. Chicken sandwich, $2.50. Hand job, $10. Checking his wallet for the necessary payment, he walks up to the bar and beckons to one of the 3 exceptionally attractive blondes serving drinks to an eager-looking group of men. "Yes?" she inquires with a knowing smile. "Can I help you?" "I was wondering," whispers the man, "are you the one who gives the hand jobs?" "Yes," she purrs, "I am." The man replies, "Well, go wash your hands. I want a cheese sandwich." Grandma Jones was 92 years old and had never spent a single night in a hospital bed. So when a nasty bout of the flu finally landed her in the local clinic for observation, she wasn't about to make it easy for anyone. From the moment the orderlies wheeled her in, she was a whirlwind of complaints. "The room is too cold. The jello is too green. This gown has no back," she barked at 2 exhausted young interns as they tucked her in. Finally, she noticed a small plastic remote with a single red button hanging from the bed rail. "And what's this gadget?" she demanded. "Another thing to break?" "That's your call button, Grandma," one intern explained patiently. "If you need anything at all in the middle of the night, water, extra blankets, or help getting up, just press that button." Grandma squinted at it. "What does it do? Set off a siren in the basement?" "No, ma'am," the intern replied. "When you press it, it simply turns on a small light in the hallway so the nurse on duty knows you need her." Grandma's eyes widened in total disbelief. She shoved the button away and crossed her arms. "A light in the hall?" she snapped. "Listen here, young man. I'm the one who's sick. If that nurse is so afraid of the dark that she needs a light on in the hallway, she can get up and flip the switch herself." 2 salesmen were going door to door and knocked on the door of a woman who was not happy to see them. She told them in no uncertain terms that she did not want to hear their offer and slammed the door in their faces. To her surprise, however, the door did not close and in fact bounced back open. She tried again, really put her back into it, and slammed the door again, with the same result. The door bounced back open. Convinced these rude people were sticking their foot in the door, she reared back to give it a slam that would teach them a lesson, when one of them said the following: "Ma'am, before you do that again, you need to move your cat." A 65-year-old man walked into a crowded waiting room and approached the desk. The receptionist said, "Yes, sir? What are you seeing the doctor for today?" "There's something wrong with my dick," he replied. The receptionist became irritated and said, "You shouldn't come into a crowded waiting room and say things like that." "Why not? You asked me what was wrong and I told you," he said. The receptionist replied, "Now you've caused some embarrassment in this room full of people. You should have said there is something wrong with your ear or something and discussed the problem further with the doctor in private." The man replied, You shouldn't ask people questions in a room full of strangers if the answer could embarrass anyone. The man walked out, waited several minutes, and then re-entered. The receptionist smiled smugly and asked, "Yes?" "There's something wrong with my ear," he stated. The receptionist nodded approvingly and smiled, knowing he had taken her advice. "And what is wrong with your ear, sir?" "I can't piss out of it," he replied. The waiting room erupted in laughter. During his Sunday sermon on base, a Navy chaplain focused on the topic, "Forgive your enemies." After delivering a long message, he asked the congregation how many were willing to forgive their enemies. About half raised their hands. Not satisfied, he preached for another 20 minutes and asked again. This time, around 80% responded affirmatively. Still not content, he went on for another 15 minutes before posing the question one more time. With thoughts of Sunday lunch on everyone's mind, nearly every hand went up, except for one retired Master Chief in the back. "Master Chief, are you not willing to forgive your enemies?" he asked. "I don't have any," the Master Chief replied. "Master Chief, that's quite remarkable. How old are you?" The Master Chief replied, 93. "Master Chief, please come up here and tell the congregation how someone can live to 93 and not have a single enemy." Slowly, the old Master Chief made his way to the front, turned around, and said, "It's simple. I just outlived them." There was once a very successful farmer from Texas who started gaining interest in his ancestry. After doing some digging, he traced his lineage back to a small town in Ireland, and lo and behold, they were a family of farmers. So he packed his bags and took a trip to Ireland to visit the small town, to see if he could track down some of his kin. After landing in Dublin and driving an hour outside of the city, he stopped in a pub to grab a drink and start asking around about his family. The Texan sat down, ordered a pint, and started talking to the Irishman sitting at the bar. After explaining his story and the purpose of the trip, the Irishman responded, "You don't say. I've never heard of your family, but I'm a farmer as well. Tell me, what's it like farming in Texas?" "Gladly," the Texan said. "Farming in Texas has been quite lucrative for me. If you started out in the morning and drove west, you could drive all day before you reached the end of my property. And if you started the next day and drove east all day, you wouldn't reach the end of my property. Same thing north and south, you could drive either direction all day and you wouldn't reach the end of my farmland." "Ah, I know what you mean," said the Irishman. "I've got a tractor like that as well." After noticing that he was no longer responding to her commands when out on his morning walks, my wife found out that our dear old schnauzer Ted could hardly hear at all, so she popped him down to the vet for investigation. After his vet exam, it turns out poor Tedster had so much hair in his ears, he was basically wearing his own fuzzy noise-canceling headphones. The vet cleaned the hair out of both ears and advised, if you want to keep this from happening again, just rub a little hair removal cream in his ears once a month. So on our way home from the vet, Joanna goes to the store and buys some Nair. When handing over the cream at the register, the pharmacist says, "If you're using this under your arms, I advise that you don't use deodorant for a few days." Joanna says, "Oh, no worries, I'm not using it under my arms." "I see. Then if you're using it on your legs, I would advise you don't use body lotion for a couple of days." She replies, "That's not a problem. I'm not using it on my legs either. I'm actually using it on my schnauzer." The pharmacist stops, raises an eyebrow, and says, "Well, in that case, stay off your bike for a week or two." A farmer has been farting a lot. He's been to several doctors, but none of them know what's wrong. Desperate, he reaches out to the local priest. He says, "Father, I don't believe in this religious mumbo-jumbo, but I'm out of options. My wife is threatening to leave. What can God do for me?" The pastor says, "My son, you must give everything to God. In doing so, all shall be well." So the farmer leaves. Soon, though, he starts coming to church every single day at 6 p.m. At first, the pastor is pleased, but week by week, his congregation thins. Within a month, The farmer is the only one left in attendance. Confused, the pastor approaches him and asks, "Well, my child, did God help your flatulence issues?" And the farmer says, "He did, Father. I used to fart whenever I needed to, but now I wait until 6 and give all I've got to God." A woman walked into a quiet local pharmacy and waited until the other customers had left. She leaned over the counter and whispered to the pharmacist, "Do you have any arsenic in stock?" The pharmacist's eyes nearly popped out of his head. "Arsenic? Ma'am, that's a deadly poison. What in the world would you need that for?" The woman looked him dead in the eye and said calmly, "I intend to kill my husband." "Absolutely not!" the pharmacist hissed, waving his hands. "I'm a professional. I could lose my license, go to prison, and be ruined for life. I wouldn't sell you arsenic if you offered me $1 million. Get out before I call the police." The woman didn't move. She didn't say a word. She simply reached into her designer handbag, pulled out a 4x6 glossy photograph, and laid it face up on the counter. The photo was crystal clear. It showed her husband in a very compromising position with the pharmacist's own wife. The pharmacist froze. He stared at the photo for a long, silent minute. Slowly, his face softened.
A man breaks out of prison after serving 15 years behind bars. Desperate for money and weapons, he breaks into a nearby house and finds a young couple asleep in bed. He drags the husband out of bed, ties him to a chair, then ties the wife to the bed. Leaning over her, he presses close to her neck for a moment before suddenly getting up and heading into the bathroom. As soon as he disappears, the husband whispers frantically, "Listen to me. This guy's an escaped convict. Just look at him. He's probably been locked away for years without seeing a woman. I saw him all over your neck. If he wants anything, don't fight him. Don't argue. Just do whatever he says so we can survive this. He looks dangerous, and if he gets angry, he could kill us both. Stay strong, sweetheart. I love you." The wife tries not to laugh and whispers back, "Honey, he wasn't kissing my neck. He was whispering in my ear. He told me he thinks you're cute and asked if we had any Vaseline." She pauses for a second before adding, "I told him it was in the bathroom. Stay strong, sweetheart. I love you too." The house was quiet on a Sunday morning until I walked past the bedroom and saw my wife standing completely motionless in front of the full-length mirror. She didn't look happy. She sighed, turned to me with tears in her eyes, and said, "Honey, be honest with me. I look in this mirror and all I see is a woman who is getting wrinkled, looking tired, and putting on weight. It's depressing. Please, I just need you to give me one sincere compliment to make me feel better about myself." I looked at her, took a deep breath, and thought for a second. I wanted to be supportive, but my inner comedian took the wheel. I walked over, put a hand on her shoulder, and whispered, "Well, sweetheart, if it makes you feel any better, there is absolutely nothing wrong with your eyesight." And that, Your Honor, is the last thing I remember before the lamp hit me. It was 8 a.m., and Martha was standing by the stove. "Honey, I've got applewood bacon, farm-fresh eggs, and hot coffee ready. You want a plate?" Her husband, Dave, shook his head. "No thanks, dear. I took one of those new Viagras this morning, and honestly, it's just completely taken the edge off my appetite. I'm not hungry at all." By 1 p.m., Martha tried again. "I've made some homemade chicken noodle soup and toasted sourdough. You've got to be getting hungry by now." Dave just sighed contentedly. "Tell you the truth, it must be the medicine. I feel full as a tick. I just don't have a need for food right now." Dinner time rolled around, and the smell of a garlic butter ribeye steak filled the whole house. Martha walked into the room one last time. "I've got steak, loaded mashed potatoes, and a chocolate lava cake for dessert. Are you sure you don't want to eat?"
I'm telling you, Martha, Dave said, it's the Viagra. I feel like I could go another 3 days without a snack. Martha finally snapped. She threw her oven mitts on the floor and shouted, "Well, would you mind getting off of me then? I'm bloody starving." Did you hear about the fellow that was talking to his buddy and he said, "I don't know what to get my wife for her birthday. She has everything. And besides, she can afford to buy anything she wants, so I'm stumped." His buddy said, "I have an idea. Why don't you make up a certificate that says she can have 2 hours of great sex any way she wants it? She'll probably be thrilled." So the first fella did just that. The next day his buddy asked, "Well, did you take my suggestion? How'd it turn out?" She loved it. She jumped up, thanked me, kissed me on the mouth, and ran out the door yelling, "I'll see you in 2 hours."
John O'Reilly hoisted his beer and said, "Here's to spending the rest of my life between the legs of me wife." That won him the top prize for the best toast of the night. He went home and told his wife Mary, "I won the prize for the best toast of the night." She said, "Aye, what was your toast?" John said, "Here's to spending the rest of my life sitting in church beside my wife." Mary said, "Oh, that is very nice indeed, John." The next day, Mary ran into one of John's toasting friends on the street corner. The man chuckled leeringly and said, "John won the prize the other night with a toast about you, Mary." She said, "Aye, and I was a bit surprised myself. You know, he's only been there twice. Once he fell asleep and the other time I had to pull him by the ears to make him come."
The atmosphere in the executive wing was thick enough to cut with a butter knife. One by one, the senior VPs had been called into the chairman's office, emerging minutes later looking pale and sweating through their silk suits. Finally, it was Ted's turn. As the junior member of the board, his heart was hammering against his ribs as he walked into the soundproof room. The chairman and the 4 other directors were lined up at the far end of the mahogany table like a firing squad. "Ted," the chairman barked, his eyes like cold flint. "Stand at the end of the table." Ted obeyed, his hands shaking. "I'm going to ask you one question, and I expect the absolute truth," the chairman said. "Have you ever engaged in any physical relations with my personal secretary, Miss Floyd?" Ted turned bright red. "Oh, no, sir, absolutely not. I've barely even spoken to her." The chairman leaned forward, narrowing his eyes. "Are you certain? No late nights in the office? No working lunches?" "I swear on my career, sir," Ted pleaded, "I haven't so much as held her hand. I've never had any kind of intimate contact with Miss Floyd, ever." The chairman let out a long, slow sigh and looked at the other 4 directors, who all stared at their feet in shamed silence. Then he looked back at Ted and tossed a manila folder down the table. "Good," the chairman sighed. "Then you're the only one with enough grounds to fire her." 2 friends were halfway through their Sunday round when one of them sliced her drive badly. They watched in silent horror as the ball soared over the trees and headed straight for the 14th fairway, where a group of men were putting. Thwack! The ball struck one of the men squarely. He instantly doubled over, clutched his groin with both hands, and collapsed into the grass, rolling back and forth in pure, unadulterated agony. The woman sprinted over, breathless and terrified. "I'm so sorry. Please, let me help you. I'm a licensed physical therapist, and if you'll just let me, I know a few techniques that can ease that kind of intense muscle trauma." No, the man wheezed, his face turning a deep shade of purple. "I'll be fine. Just give me 20 minutes. And a priest." But the woman was determined to help. She was so insistent that the man finally groaned and moved his arms. Gently, she moved his hands to the side, loosened his belt, and reached in to perform a focused professional massage to the affected area. After a few minutes of her expert work, she looked at him kindly and asked, "There, how does that feel?" The man looked up at her, exhaled a long sigh of relief, and said, "That feels absolutely incredible, ma'am, truly. But I still think my thumb is broken." 7-year-old Leo had a massive social studies project due on Monday called My Family Origins. He sat down with his mom, pen and paper ready. "Mom," Leo asked, "how was I born?" His mom, who wasn't quite ready for the talk, smiled nervously. "Well, honey, a beautiful angel brought you down from the clouds and left you right in our arms." Leo scribbled that down, looking a bit confused. "Okay, but how were you and Dad born?" "Oh, the angel brought us too," she said, relieved to be off the hook. Leo paused, his brow furrowed. "What about Grandma and Grandpa? Did the angel bring them to their houses too?" "That's right, darling," his mom chirped. "Our whole family is a gift from the angels." A week later, the teacher was grading the papers. She got to Leo's and nearly choked on her coffee. The opening line of his report read, "This report was very hard to research because there hasn't been a natural birth in my family for at least 3 generations."
Little Timmy was at a stage where he was soaking up every word he heard on the playground like a sponge. On Monday, he came home and asked, "Dad, what does shit mean?" His dad, wanting to save the conversation for later, quickly said, "Oh, that's just a fancy word for coats and jackets, Timmy." On Tuesday, Timmy asked, "Dad, what does fucking mean?" His dad didn't even look up from his paper. "That just means cooking, son, like when I'm making dinner." On Wednesday, Timmy had one more. "Dad, what are bitches and hoes?" His dad sighed and said, "Those are just old-fashioned terms for grandpas and grandmas." Finally, Thanksgiving arrived. The house smelled like gravy and the whole family was expectant. When the doorbell rang, Timmy sprinted to the entrance with a huge, innocent smile. He threw the door open, looked his elderly relatives right in the eye, and shouted, "Hey, bitches and hoes, come on in. Hand me your shit and I'll put it in the closet. Dad's in the kitchen f***ing the turkey right now."